this is what we're gonna do tonight. One of these little pots. They're kind of
Oh,
fun. It's sort of uh I call it a beginner's way of hollowing, and they're a whole lot easier and faster to hollow than something big, where I was gonna do one of the little three-corner boxes, but I figured this would be a little bit more entertaining. It's a little
yeah.
quicker to do as well. So where we start, it's a small log. It's, I think, 4.5 inches, 4 inches in diameter, something like that. So it's a little longer than the 4 inches, but we'll get it down to the 4 inch category. It is mounted between centers, as close to the centers as I can. There is no pin in the live center, so I still have the availability to maneuver this. It is in a straight plane on this end of it. So that goes back to the natural edge bowls that I like to do. So I keep that plane sort of flat as much as possible. This is a piece of walnut. It actually has been around for probably the best end of a year. So needless to say, the bark all falls off. So first place to start, face shield on, of course. Um, like I say, it's between center, spin it. It's going to spin slow. It may or may not be out of balance. Some of these cooperate quite nicely right from the start. Some do not. But at any rate, we'll get rid of this corner up here to start with. And I try not to go up past halfway at this point. Not that it would overly matter. We're just kind of getting rid of some stuff that we don't want. And of course, we'll stop and look. This stuff actually has a little spalt or a little bit of spalting rot in it. We're to start to flatten out the bottom a little bit. We'll switch that's a bow gouge there that's just about seen its life expectancy. Seeing as how it's all the way to about 6 inches long. So now we have a little bit of a flat. Now we can look to see how much room we have, how much left we have over there on the sides. And if we want to, we can maneuver it a little bit. Except we're going to have to sneak in there and make that smaller. And just go to a spindle gouge so I can get in tight against it. Well, I'll probably have to chip it away a little bit so that I can maneuver this a little bit. Grab a chisel quick like. Because we have way too much on one side, so it's lopsided now as it sits. Take it off would be easier than sticking my fingers. And drop the chisel on the floor. Well, there's rubber pads there. Except the rubber pads will haunt you. It's a nice thing to stand on, but if you drop a tool on it, it bounces. And as I was telling, I've started teaching some classes at my local woodcraft, and I was telling those guys, I said, yeah, I said, it's nice to have the rubber pad. I said, right up until you drop a tool and it lands butt end down, which is good. But the business end usually lays against your leg and will slice you right quick. And yes, that is experience talking.
Never fails, right?
It never fails. The one and only time I actually did it wasn't even my tool. It was somebody else's from our turning club. And they wanted me to change the grind on it drastically. Now let's see where we're at. Taking there, we're still leaving. Still could go that way a little bit more. Can't go too much more that way. Definitely getting, I've moved the axis. Just sort of get rid of some material up there. The other alternative, I guess you could sort of leave this, I don't know, maybe you could leave some of that on, but they were pretty much halfway thereabouts. That's really all we need to get to. Yes, it is walnut, so I will probably be coughing. Walnut does not necessarily like me. You get away with turning it when it's dry or when it's wet, but when it's dry, it doesn't always cooperate. We'll mark it Senate. Just do it with our parting tool. It's easier. I have a parting tool. I use Vic Mark chucks. So I actually have a parting tool that has the dovetail right on it, which makes life a little easier. And make sure it's clean. In all fashions. And I use the spindle guides for that. Now we can give it a little bit more of a rounded bottom. So there, if we're happy with our shape, then that's good enough. It is tearing it up a little bit there. There's one alternative on that. I'm going to redo that tenon just a little bit. Problem with the wet walnut is it sort of wants to stand up or fuzz up some grain when you go across it like that. And that could cause me some problems with the chucking. So the other thing we can try, anybody and everybody's watching Richard Raffin, the man that loves the scrapers. Well, I will give it one thing. He does have a good point. If you take the time sort of to learn a little bit, they are a wonderful tool. But me being a cheap kind of a person, or I shouldn't say cheap, thrifty kind of a person, I'm not going out and spending hundreds of dollars. So if you want Amazon, you can buy flat stock steel. That's fly cutters. This one happens to be 8 by 30, so 8 millimeters thick, 30 millimeters wide, a 200. It is a lot of grinding down here to get it to fit into a tang, but it does work. They do a nice job as far as cleaning things up. Because like on something like this sort of wants to be pretty clean right from the start down here. So if I flip it around in the chuck, and I guess if you're really so minded, you could actually sand that as far as that goes, but it's still standing up a little bit. So if we turn it up on its edge, and back across it a little bit. One thing I've learned when you're doing it with these is don't try and do a big area at one time. Because if you go to move your body a little bit to get your body out of the road, not nice things happen. Because those traditional scrapers, when they catch, or when they grab a hold of something, it is a serious grab. So we'll get rid of the last little bit of this top and then we'll flip it around. Like I say, most of this is done from the bottom in the chuck. That's back down to the original plane. Now we'll flip it. This is the same as the piece earlier today I did. It's got a little bit, it's starting to decay. There's a little bit of spalding. It's sort of decaying a little bit on the outside, which is a nice look, but it also makes it more difficult to cut something, like especially like this, because once we get to this part of it, this top part, we're going to have multiple different directions that we're going to have to cut. Because when we start making the curve down in, we're going to have to go or the opposite what you might think you want to go in order to continue cutting downhill, put it that way. So we'll go with the bigger jaws. It's actually the bigger chuck. Don't need the big chuck for this, but that's the jaws that's on it. And we still look good. Zoomed in quite far, but that's okay. You get to see the bird's eye view, so to speak. Still sticking with the bowl gouge. We should now be in balance so we can bring the speed up to where we're comfortable. Get an idea about where we want to be down there. You can make these all kinds of different shapes. I'm not really going for that quite that shape. I like the try not to make the hollowing part any harder than it has to be. Take a peek because we're sort of too pointy. We also have a hole or a piece of bark here yet. So we got to get rid of a little bit of that. Get an idea how big we want this to be. Ideally, that's 1 3/8 hole. That's a nice size hole to go through with the, I have bigger hollowing tools, so I don't go through a super small hole anyhow. I just find it to be a little bit too cumbersome. And of course, there's nothing says that we can't go to a spindle gouge and clean up the last little bit, which we probably will, and make this radius out here a little bit less pointy. So take a peek at her shape. Like I say, this stuff, when it's wet, and this is all this walnut that I had gotten, wants to do the same thing. I mean, it just kind of doesn't like to cooperate as well as what it should. It sort of tears some of it up, which is what it's doing right there. Of course, we're taking some fairly good cuts off of it, but it really shouldn't, being wet or sort of wet, it really shouldn't do that, but it does. The other thing we can try is go back the other way. Be more gentle. I mean, that's surface that's there is not, in my opinion, is not a sandable surface because there's too much torn grain. That helped it. So that would come out with 120 easily. Could be. So this stuff, this is sort of limbwood, so it does I don't know, limbwood always seems like it's more difficult to work with. Not to mention since it's sort of spalted a little bit. So that's a good indication that things are starting to go in the wrong direction. So we'll pick up the spindle gouge, see if that will usually makes it cooperate more so. Not to mention it'll allow us to get a nicer curve in the bottom. Let's see what it did. We probably still have an area there. Still a little bit there. But we're gonna call it good enough for this. Like I say, this is got more moisture in it than what I would have thought it would have. So this is gonna need a couple weeks, couple months to actually dry. And then I can come back and sand it at that point. You can actually sand it while it's wet too. That's one of the other things I learned from watching Richard, that sanding wet wood is not impossible. Different, but not impossible. So now we need a hole. Need a place for the drill bit to go, I should say. I'm not a fan of drilling with the spindle gouge. It's doable, but drill bit's easier. Figuring about there. Just slow the speed
Moves
down.
that slow moving wood.
I make out all right doing it with a 3/8 spindle gouge, but the 1/2 inch one just doesn't seem like it cooperates very well. Just as easy to pick up the drill bit
Right?
than it is to have the issue.
Yeah, plus it gets rid of that, the center there that's hardly even rotating. So
Right. So now, go back up to speed. Some of the hollowing we can do with our spindle gouge, because we got to finish up this rim for starters. And I won't go real far in with the spindle gouge. Once again, you certainly could go in and drag to the side. It'll work just the same. You won't be able to get real deep with the spindle gouge, although I've seen some people go quite deep with the spindle gouge. To me, it's just a little easier, a little safer to use the tool that's designed to do it, which would be the hollowing tool. And I have actually I have two. I have the one from Lyle Jameson. If I could find somebody to sell it to, I probably would sell that one because it just collects dust. I went and took a class with Trent Bosch about a year or so ago. And his are much more friendly in my shop because my shop is small. So it takes a smaller footprint So just go back in the hole, bring the handle to the side. It is pretty quick. Try to get the whole way to the bottom of the hole. As I drag a tool back, it will drag some of the shavings out, especially in one this size. Try and get some of that out of the side, out of here. And that's probably good enough, that part. Of course, if anybody does hollow forms, they know this is the most time-consuming part of the whole process, is to clean all the crap out of the hole. One that, like I say,
100%.
one this size, that's kind of why I pick on more on this kind of stuff, this size, than I would the bigger ones. Although here lately I've done a couple of the bigger ones, but all you do is spend all your time stopping and cleaning the hole. And I get irritated with that. So now we'll go to the bent bar. And hopefully I don't rearrange the camera. And even though the bent bar is in a captured system, it's still, the curved part still needs to be in front of the tool rest. Otherwise it does have, you will get a lot of vibration. Not that you're gonna do any real damage with these because it is captured. Of course, it's only one Allen screw actually holding that bar. So if it got enough momentum in there, why it could do some, could make life exciting. And it's usually not the excitement that you really want. His system is very easy to set up. It's set for a little bit over 1/4 of an inch. Somewhere thereabouts. Probably bring, his laser is a little bit nicer than, I mean, this is certainly not, I certainly wouldn't brag about somebody's product for that matter. He's the only person that I've ever taken a class with that does not give you any kind of discount because you came and took a class with him. I thought that was just kind of appalling in some ways, but that's what he does. So now we have the laser. Good, you're going to be able to see the dot. Okay. So now it's a matter of following the bouncing dot. And clean a little bit more out. This should, yeah, I think I've cleaned enough out in there. This, even though this bar is bent, usually you can actually get, once you get inside, you can actually get almost to the center or at the center, depending on the size of the piece. These do not like the speed though. His idea is that shouldn't be turning over 700 or 800 RPMs. I'm on more like 11 or 12 with these. And they just seem like they actually are a little less aggressive. So we're still just making room. Maybe should have picked a drier piece. Now the chips are not going to cooperate. The little one that I showed you, I did this afternoon. I hollowed that out in probably 15 minutes, something like that, because the chips were dry enough that they kept coming out instead of sitting in there. That'll work. Not that big of a piece. One thing you can feel in here with your fingers, at least for a little ways, if you go through the small hole, then you're sort of hoping that you got the laser set in the right place. I have not gone through the side yet of one, but it will happen. Come on, Chip, come on. Let's go in behind some of it. As you can see, it starts to chatter. You get too many chips in there, the chips don't have nowhere to go. So they just bunch up. The next thing you know, it will lift the tool up off the tool rest, which then it becomes exciting. That's when things fly. It'd be just like cutting on, it gets over basically on the other side of center. And you could use an air compressor, but my granddaughter is sleeping in the room right next to my shop, so I actually have to be pretty quiet, or I'll get yelled at, which is not unusual, but I told her that I would try and be very quiet tonight. It's sort of like just like doing a bowl that you want to do fairly thin or something like that. You need to come from the top and work your way down and not go back to the top. The other thing was, which was pretty good instructions, is don't try and pull that tool out while the machine's running. Stop it off, stop it, and pull it out because inevitably hit something on the way out, and then you'll be irritated. Usually, when I do this kind of stuff, instead of using the air compressor, which blows its chips and stuff everywhere, I just use my shop vac that has a very small hose and just reach in there and suck the stuff out. It's a 2-for-1 deal because you're getting rid of the stuff inside and you're cleaning up your shop as you go. So that's kind of my philosophy on that. So we're hollowed the thickness down about there. Really feels like my depth hole should have been a lot deeper than what it is because we're only down about there. So I might have to go back and use the straight bar a little bit. I normally use a straight bar just by hand. You certainly can use it in the captured system and the laser. Trying to get the chips to come out, but they don't seem to want to cooperate. And when you're doing, this is basically would be side grain work. So these cutters are actually making shavings in here. As you can see, it's not dust that I'm pulling out, it's tiny little shavings. So they don't eject themselves overly well. We'll see if I have enough room. If you can get enough room to get in there, you can do the bottom with the curved bar. Now the wonders of working blind is you can end up sometimes making a very substantial cut. You can see the bar wants to shake a little bit from time to time. And that's just being sort of a little bit aggressive with it. Maybe not on purpose. But it's more the fact that you can't see anything you're doing. Once again, if you watch somebody that really you know, somebody like Trent or one of them other people that do a lot of hollow forms. I mean, they make it look really much easier than what it really is. I don't think I was able to actually get to the center. That's an issue. Let me switch. I pulled that out of that. I use a short handle on this. I think he was talking about using like a 20-inch handle or something like that, but once again, he's in the business of selling tools. And I'm like, well, I don't want any of your handles. You're all metal handles. I'm a wood guy, so mine are all wood. So we have the platform on here. Can definitely move it a bit closer. So it's already set at the height because all these cutters are set the same. I'll watch because I can hit the tailstock with this cutter. But well, so just get back into the middle, and it will drill a hole. That I put underneath sort of put it underneath my arm. So my elbow's at the back of that tool, basically. So it really doesn't try and lift it out of my arm. This maybe he got super, super aggressive. That little bit of cutting, that really makes chips there. The curly Q kind that doesn't come out of the hole. So my trusty little piece of wire with some tape on it. A little slower than the shop vac or something such as that. But now, I don't want to get too carried away. Now we're actually down to where we need to be. These I have a tendency to leave a little bit thicker at the bottom. Probably should pull that a little bit to the side. It'll make it easier. Of course, now you got to go find it again. There it is. And the tool rest over a little bit. Get too much of an angle. That's pretty much what I did in there was drilled a hole. That hole was probably 3/4 of an inch wide, maybe an inch wide in there. And that's pretty much all I did. I didn't take any material out here originally. Now I took some out there. Now we can go back to our bent tool. Back it up a little bit. And we're good to go. A little bit more.
Getting some shavings in there.
It's well, and like I say, when I was out there at Trent's, he's like, yeah, you can do a side grain. When he had everybody sort of do a side grain one just to see the difference, the shavings just build up so quickly
Yep.
that it's ridiculous in a way. And of course they're wet, so they're harder yet actually to even get out. This is my mistake. I should have picked a piece that was drier. If you do this in a piece that's dry, it's not as bad. So we're looking for the elongation of the dot. That's pretty much generally is about where I stop. Once it becomes elongated, I try not to go down any further. Remember, I do have it set at 1/4 of an inch. I am going to go back in there with a scraper as well and try and clean up some of the thread. The further down we get, well, I was going to say, the further down we get, the less trouble we'll have with the shavings, but I lied. They all want to go to the rim. That's the only good part, except when they build up far enough, then, as you saw, it starts to pick the tool up. Yes, to do one of these in any kind of size, to me, it's almost like watching paint dry. I've done a couple of them on my live streams. It's like I know very good and well I'm putting people to sleep. I'm like, that's all you get done doing is stop and cleaning the chips out. Stop, clean the chips out. The only excitement is if you get too thin and blow one up, then it's exciting. But we're just about there. If we're down to the bottom half, we definitely have to commend these people that are good enough to do this all freehand by sound and feel. I've done some very small ones in that method and didn't blow them up, but in the same token, I've done a bunch of Christmas ornaments the same way with a small globe and like 3/8 inch tools. And you get it to where you're just about done. Either they end up being too fat at the bottom, usually, or you go through the side and make them nothingness. But that's another scenario of practice, practice, practice. But I like my stuff to disappear. So things like Christmas ornaments for me are not something that goes by at a craft show very well. So I have a tendency not to do very many of them. I leave them for my father to do. Bring my tool rest over a little bit because now I'm going to come in at a pretty serious angle. You can see where that laser's at. We are very close to the center point down there. Once again, if it's not that perfect 1/4 inch the whole way down, there's nobody really going to know. It'll be nice and light and almost no matter what you do, unless you make it really heavy down there. But you want to put some sort of a artificial flower or something in it, so you need to have a little bit of weight or it wants to fall over. The one more clean out, I think will be good down at the bottom. Could have smaller fingers. I could get in there a little easier too. These things will, the typical wet wood, it will distort. Surprisingly enough, I've done probably 6 or 8 of these like this. They'll get tiny little cracks from radiating out from the pith, but I've yet to have one of these crack in half, which is kind of surprising with having the pith in them. But it doesn't seem to do anything really crazy because it'd be a real pain in the, you know what, to try and fill any kind of cracks if they got to be any size in there, because anything you put in there is going to run right straight through to the inside. Feels like I should do a little bit of work on this curve. This is also, for me, this little area right here is generally where I will go through the side of something if I'm going to. Laser says otherwise, but if you have a really nice gentle touch in some of those places, you can actually get it relatively smooth on the inside. Not that it really matters, because really nobody can stick their fingers in that far. The way my finger says, that's probably good enough in there. Get a bunch of more of these shavings out, and then we'll switch over to a big teardrop scraper. It's also on a curved bar. And you can go in there and clean up some of the stuff, and it does remove, you have to sort of keep an eye on it, because it does remove more material than what you think it does. But one more handle switch. Really need to get another insert or two and make some more of the 5/8 handles. They seem to have enough stuff that I could use the 5/8 handles on. Get my laser, see if I can move this so that I don't bang into the camera. This is the teardrop scraper that we're going to use. And I want to rotate that a little bit. The one that I was working on earlier today, having trouble to get right to the center. So I rotated this around a little bit further. And this basically it's a traditional scraper. I mean, it's not a negative break. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be grabby. I will tilt it over a little bit on its side, just a little bit, not a big tilt, not like you would with something else. But once again, we have to be back far enough, definitely with this, so that the curved part is over the tool rest, because I will come the whole way back up to the top. We'll go down, and we'll hopefully get across the middle with it. If we don't get across the middle, it's not a giant size loss. Just a slight tilt over. Basically, you make one nice swooping pass across that. And you get the whole way down. Pencil touch. And that should have the top 2/3 of it done. This comes out as really big shavings. This does not come out as dust. It creates shavings in there. And you can see the amount that I'm pulling out with my finger. That's a lot of shavings for all the more that I cut. Now we get the adventure of moving forward a little bit with the tool rest. Less overhang, the better, to the point of beyond the curve. The hard part for me is always getting to the very center. Because I want to sweep a curve, because I know that's a little bit thicker in there. You may get just a little bit of chattering if you're pushing too hard on it. Just want it to be gentle, gentle. That should be pretty much it. Still a tiny little bit in the center, but I don't get too alarmed at that. If you really, really wanted to, you could stick a 1-inch sanding disc in there once it's dry and actually sand around in that very bottom where somebody can look in it and see it. But there's always the pesky wood turner that's going to do this though. They're going to stick their finger in, see how thick it is and see how smooth it is. So you can reach in there if you're so minded or so willingness. You can reach in there with your fingers. You certainly could take a piece of sandpaper, normal sandpaper. I wouldn't wrap it around my finger. My train of thought on that would be, I have some sticky back sandpaper from the woodworking days, but I only have 150 and 220. I just cut a little strip. It sticks to my finger. Then I can just use my finger. Your finger feels everything. My fingers are fairly long, so I can get in there as far as my finger will reach and stay in 150, 220 and call it a day. This up here at the very rim, I'm going to make nice and smooth. Put the rest of it on down through there. Have at it. If you're so minded, any problem. They make some really expensive calipers to reach in there. Mine are actually big for that, but we can try it because it feels like we're thick down there. We're probably almost a 1/2 inch thick right in through there. So maybe we'll take a little bit more out of that and then we'll call it a day. I'm going to show you what it looks like to sand something wet. Because I even power sand wet. And it will change tunes if you start to get thin, even if it's wet wood. If you start to get thin, it will change sound for you. It feels better. See how far we can reach with these. There's still a little bit on the thick side down in there, but it's good enough for now. For that, like I say, it'll be a little heavier in the bottom, which won't hurt anything. Oh, I knew I had sticky back sandpaper. This is some Miracle Gold, where you can just stick it to your finger. It sticks fast. Get things out of the road. Get some of the chips out of there. I mean, you certainly could put it on something to hold it, but it's sticky back sandpaper. So it's really quite easy to reach around the corner because your finger just follows the contour. Or if you try and do that with regular sandpaper, it just wants to run away from you. Or the stickiness, just that little bit of stickiness makes it stick to your finger. And that's how I would sand the inside as best as I can. can't believe that nobody has ever, I've never seen anybody come up with any bright ideas on how to actually sand the inside of things like this. Most of the people that you talk to that do hollow forms are like, well, I don't sand anything inside. They don't need to look inside. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's their opinion.
Through
Everybody
that.
has their opinions. We can give the outside just a quick little sand. I'm not going to sand much, just to show you that it does sand quite well, actually. It will sand normally in reverse, which is what we're going to do. About 600 RPM, so I got 120 grit sandpaper on there. I'm not going to make a ton of dust. But if you're to take the time and effort to do that, and those places that the grain was stood up are pretty much gone. Tiny bit left down in there yet. But it cleans it up really nice and neat. You can sand a whole, I've sanded some of these the whole way up through like 600 or 800 grit sandpaper. Throw them in a paper bag, let them dry for 6 months or whatever, come back out, and then all you do is a little bit of hand sanding to them, just to take any of the little fuzzies that stood up, and you're good to go. So I mean, I've never tried any that were really super sopping wet, but you know, at this wetness, why they work just fine. The only thing left to do on something like this, just set this off to the side, would be to take the bottom off eventually. Which there again, there are multiple ways that you could do it. I helped at my local woodcraft store, since now I'm sort of a part-time employee of theirs since I teach classes. But I helped with a class with Alex Snodgrass, the master of the bandsaw. And this is what he pulled out of his pocket. He says, you never lose this pencil because you just take a little rare earth magnet, some shrink tubing, put it around your pencil. It's got a magnet on it, so it sticks to everything, sticks all over the place, and everything's metal. So I thought it was a pretty simple and good idea myself. So I did get a bunch of shrink tubing. And did a fair amount of them. Oops, so this one is actually small enough. No! Shoot. I'll solve that problem. This hole is smaller than the one I did earlier today. I like this size hole better. The one I did earlier this afternoon actually got a little bit too big, hole wise. Does make it easier to hollow, but it also doesn't lend to doing the other things that you may want to do with it. Get that off. Yes. So we'll just reduce the diameter of it quickly. Everybody's favorite tool to hate, of course.
No hate.
I can do pretty good with it for doing certain things. Even to the point where one of the classes I do is basically a beginner's class. And I do make them use it to do just this, to make a piece rough from squared around, which I think is quicker and easier than it is to use a spindle roughing gouge as far as I'm concerned.
I
May not
agree.
give me a great finish, but For me, one of the things that I do at this time of year, I should have already been working on. Well, that sucker's not even long enough. Is make Christmas trees. And these are Christmas trees that are to be painted. My wife is a decorative painter. There's some friends of hers said last year, you should make these and we'll take them to this show that they were going to, and we'll sell them for you. Okay. I made, I don't know, 15, 20 of them. That's about how long they lasted sitting on the table. These women are
Nice.
crazy when it comes to painting. And all I do is turn them. There is no sanding, no finishing. It's all spindle work. So all we have to do is put that, we're basically going to put it back in between centers. Slow the speed down, and it spins relatively true. True enough. That's true enough right there to be able to finish sanding that. Take the tenon off. The tenon I will only get down to, like I did with the little one. It's generally what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to take it down to about that size. And I'll just take the whatever Dremel or the Fordham, and I'll grind that last little bit off. It is going with the grain. I could take a chisel. My experience with doing them with the chisel, a lot of times the grain is not running the way you think it is, and next thing you have more work. You could just put a 2-inch disc in and sand that off too in a matter of a couple of seconds. But that's it. That's all they are. And it's they're, like I said, it's pretty simple to do. It doesn't take the super high-tech hollowing. You're going to need some sort of a bent tool, whether it be one of the carbide tools or one of the captured systems. As far as I'm concerned, the captured system is the way to go if you can, but just makes life easier. But there's nothing says that you can't get a 3/8 or half-inch hollowing tool, because I do have some of them that are handheld. I could put them, actually could put them in the hollowing system. There's one that's a 3/8 inch bar. I just put that in a handle and just have at it. You know, you want to make the hole either like doing Christmas ornaments or something small, that you just, play with it and figure out what sound it makes when it starts to get thin. So that's it.
Well done, Kurt.
Beautiful.
That was a great demo.
Yeah, great demo, Kirk.
Really
Anybody have?
That was it.
Well, it was. Hey,
Does anybody have any
Thank you
questions?
very much.
It was good.
Go down. Can't all talk at one time.
Right? Any questions?
That camera is like crystal clear. One of the best we see in these demos. What kind of camera you have?
It's two different ones, to be quite honest with you. The one that's looking down in that direction at my hand, that is a Sony camcorder. I don't know if I can remember what the model number is, but I can't see it. That one's looking down. That one, of course, has your digital zoom in and out. The one that's looking from back here, which is actually behind my lathe, that is one of the ObSpot meets. It's a cute little camera. I mean, I was impressed with, that's actually a 4K camera. And it has zoom on it too. It's just, I've never messed with getting another little keyboard. So I think I can control that one with a keyboard, but it's sitting underneath my lathe is a cabinet. So there's a flat bench right behind me, and it's sitting on a pedestal. So I just move that one around. It actually has better color and better clarity than what the video camera has. Because if you look at the difference, this sort of looks yellowish here, where that one is showing that it is bright white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Wow.
My son-in-law makes me spend
Outstanding.
money.
Ah,
Hey, Kurt,
Yes.
can you show that tool?
Which one?
The one that you've been hollowing with the
The swan neck.
Right.
Okay,
Can
let
can you
me,
show with one of these cameras? There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah, I'll go to that one. Get a couple things out of the road and then we'll zoom out. Get rid of that. The last one I used would be that one. Go out.
One of the teardrop scraper.
That's a teardrop scraper.
Right.
Okay. First one was a hollow. Now, let me take it out of the handle before I knock.
Well, I'm talking to one about with the
Patience, Al, patience. He's going
Patience.
through showing each of them.
Patience. Okay. There's where we started. Straight bar. Nothing more than round bar that's tapered up front. Quarter, I think it's a 1/4 inch cutter that he puts in them. A lot of people say the 1/4 inch cutters are too aggressive. Most people want to go to 3/16. This one can be a little aggressive in some ways. Let's see if I can see if we can get this whole thing in the camera. Might have to take my chuck off to do that. Be easier. It'd be easier if I do that. So that's you can see most of it. Anyhow. So this is really the business end. This he gives you get the collar with it. It actually has a stop collar on there. So you set that stop collar to your lathe, your tool or your tool post. And as you saw, all I did was bring it over, plop it in, and I'm ready to go. That's the part that that's one of the things that I really liked about it.
Intuitive.
So it's very simple. It just slides across this tool rest. Everything is adjustable. Solid bars for the laser. I know there's some of them out there that use some sort of a hollow tubing, so you get more vibration up here on the laser. I'm not sure what for laser it is that he gets it, but as you saw, it has two different axes on it. That if I turn these there's two little Allen screws on either side, and it will move it quite a ways. Rather than some of the systems, you got to unloosen the bar, move the bar from side to side, front to back. I mean, you're gonna have to move this front to back depending on what you're doing, if you're doing something different than what I was doing.
Right.
But it is, I don't know. I like it. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
it is
slick
it
setup.
is expensive. I mean, and none of them are cheap,
No.
but yeah, I like it.
he-
The only
Then show the swan neck.
I watched that dot.
that
I
is the
was on
swan
the edge
necks
of
right
my
there.
seat.
Oh, you've already got it. Okay, right on.
Yeah, like I say, I very seldom have ever put the straight one. The only time I put the straight bar into the captured system so I can use the laser would be like maybe at the very, very bottom of that. If I didn't feel I was getting a good enough cut or sweep with it, then I could put that in and do the very bottom of it. If the piece is, the bigger the piece goes diameter wise, then the swan neck, you can get beyond center, or at least get right to center with the swan neck and literally come straight across.
Right.
But
Hey, Kirk,
sure.
can you put that in your tool rest and show us without anything on it, how it actually works?
Without anything on it. What do you mean by anything?
Without any wood, just kind of show us how
Oh.
it moves.
Okay. Like I say, when you put it back in, once you set it, as he would put it, you set it and forget it to your lathe. This will only pivot so far because there's actually a bolt that goes through here, but it's pretty much level or straight across anyhow is where you want it to start with. You lock that down and slide over that way a little bit further so we get the whole thing in the camera. So it's just two two pivoting arms. This is this one back here is a solid piece of steel, two pieces coming up here. I don't remember. I don't think there's actually bearings in it. I don't remember. There's a giant size bolt that comes through from the bottom. They move very, very freely. That you don't have any concern with. And as you're working along, this is sort of compresses to one side. You can actually go either side. It doesn't really make any difference to it. And it will rotate quite a ways around. It'll rotate, it'll come the whole way around till it meets the tool rest, which I don't know why you would never have a need for that, but
Thank you.
it's very simple to set up, very simple to use. And there's, you know, Trent sells them. There's other people that sell them. I personally, I mean, I like the laser part. I mean, that's sort of, I went out and took a class with him. I guess it's almost 2 years ago, something like that. And, you know, that's kind of why I wanted to go out and take a class with him is, you know, granted, I spent more money to take the class than it would have cost just to buy the thing to try it. But, you know, this way you got some insight on, you know, how to use it, how to set it up, and, you know, follow the bouncing ball on the laser, or you go super first class and there's, I don't know whether he would tell you what they are, but he also will put a little camera in there, and then you hook that camera up to a small monitor. You draw a little, you would draw he calls it a visualizer. You would literally take a dry erase marker on the monitor itself and draw a circle or a half moon around this. And as you go inside, you would look at the monitor and it shows you right where the tip is at on the inside. It's kind of, it's different. I didn't try while I was out there because I had no interest in that. I wasn't going down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
Kirk, when you were setting that up initially, you had a little jig out there that you were using when you were setting up the 1/4 inch. Could we see that again?
Sure.
And is that part of the tool, or did you make that's okay? That's part of the tool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What you get with it. So this is his bright idea. In order to hold the, rather than trying to hold the card, he said, just take a card and slide it underneath the tool. That way it stays there. So if you turn the laser on, and you can see the dot, you can see the dot really well if I turn that light off. No.
Yeah.
Make it work. But at any rate, the dot's out here. Doesn't show up. There's too much bright light to show up. But there again, these little sets, little Allen screws up here, it moves it all around without moving the bar. So when I originally put it together, I just put the bar about where I thought it should be. And then there's enough range in here that it moves it way out. So I went from 1/4 of an inch, which would be in here, out to 3/4 of an inch out there, and never touched the top bar. So it's, like I say, I don't know what the laser is, but it's kind of like worth its weight in gold as far as I'm concerned with the lasers, just by the fact of not having to loosen things up to move that a tiny little bit. It does take like 3 of the little, I don't know, whatever they are, like they're not watch batteries, but they're other ones. But you know, there again, I'm like, that's one of the things I said to him. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be taking stock in batteries. He said, no, you're not. He said, they last a long time. And he said, not to mention, he said, go on Amazon, you buy 100 of them for like $15. So I'm still working on the first 100. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This has been awesome.
Kurt,
And there's,
Kurt, can we see the covers on your shoes?
That was amazing.
they're all
Thank you.
dirty. They're all dirty. There's also pins. There's quite a bit of stuff comes with. There's pins so that you can't drop off the side. There's also other cullets. That would be 1/2 inch bar and as well as a 3/8 inch bar. But as soon as you switch them, then you got to move the tool rest. It loosens up. That actually will slide up. So this needs to be sitting level and on the tool rest so it doesn't shatter. You like my shoe covers. Get this out of the road. That's all they are. They have Velcro on them. They are some sort of a nylon material or something or other. Some lady down in Florida makes them and sells them.
Looks like a baby bed.
Exactly. Anybody that I showed it to, I'm like, that's a baby bed. I'm like, well, there
Yeah,
you go.
right.
You know somebody that sews, you get them. They're worth their weight in gold if you are like me and wear shorts in the shop, because I don't have shoes full of sawdust. So yes, I like them. They're well worth it. Even like to go out and do, I don't know, I'm not always good at that one, but if you wanted to use them to go out and do like yard work, if you wanted to wear shorts to weed whack or something like that, that way you don't get so much crap in your shoes.
How do you keep the weeds off your legs?
Well, that you don't, but at least you don't have them in your shoes. My weed whacker is
Oh,
one of the sort of older ones that's got a really long straight bar, so I really don't get
Yeah.
covered in now. So
Right on.
that's it.
Well, that was a great demo, Kurt. Hats
Any
off to you.
other questions?
Great
That was
job.
very pretty. The piece turned out great.
Well, I'll
I-
show you.
I
I'll
like
show you
where you're
something.
going with it.
And there again,
Yeah.
it's simple, small wood. It's limb wood, so you can get that all over the place. You know, just to try it and see whether you like doing it. Here is
Sure.
a piece. Since I didn't do any show and tell, this is the last one I did, which was actually like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Beautiful.
It is hollow the whole way down
Very nice.
to about 1/4 of an inch. This
Kind of wood is that?
Cypress.
Cypress. That's pretty.
It started with an M. I guess there's multiple different kinds, but the guy that I get some wood from at our turning club, he brought this big chunk in. He says, "Here, take it home and try it." Like, okay. Well, and he says cypress is
farm.
like a sponge. You want to talk about that little bit of tear out in that piece of walnut because it was wet. This stuff is just brutal. I couldn't do anything to avoid any like torn grain in it. It's that soft. And it just,
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, it took all the way to, I was farting around. I'm like, well, let's see what the sandpaper will do. And I sanded over and I'm like, well, we're not going to fart around trying to resharpen tools and try and make lighter cuts, do all that stuff, because it sanded in about 2 seconds flat.
Oh, well done.
Wow.
Yeah. Spinning on top of it
Great looking piece.
and a hole in it.
It truly
Got a
is.
hole in it.
It's got to have a hole in it.
Yeah.
That hole is beneficial though. Believe it or not, that hole is actually beneficial. Now that was done, that's long grain. So you're hollowing into end grain so that you don't get the big fuzzy chips. You actually get more powdery kind of stuff out of it.
Right.
So once you got down to the hole, half of them come out of the hole.
Right.
Crap flying everywhere, but some of it come out of the hole and you spent less time cleaning chips out, but
Good
that's
stuff.
about
All right, Kurt. If no one else has any other questions or comments for Kurt, I'm going to swing it back to Captain Eddie, see what he thought about everything that just took place here. But once again, thank you very much, Kurt.